So today is January 25th, 2022. My name is Kevin Chen, and this is the Punk and Metal project of the Houston Asian American Archive. Today, I'll be talking with Edwin Carson, who's the bassist for the Houston-based hardcore band Liberty and Justice. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk with me today.
Hey, yep, my pleasure, man.
So to start off, I'm gonna ask a few questions about your early musical experiences, early band experiences, and also your immigration to the US. And the first question I have for you is, you were born in Cebu City in the Philippines. And there was or still is a pretty well-established hardcore scene there. So did you get into hardcore music because of the city you were from?
Um, I guess yeah. There were when I started when I was in maybe high school. Yeah, high school. I was a teenager, maybe 12, 13. Um, I actually I started listening to punk rock, like Sex Pistols, and like a friend of mine, classmate of mine, introduced me to that genre, and then yeah, we listened to like Sex Pistols and Black Flag, Minor Threat, and we kind of there wasn't any punks. There was, but we were still young. We didn't know where to go. And Cebu is like a tiny island. It's not like Manila. It's like they have a punk scene or a hardcore scene back in the 80s. And in Cebu, which is a tiny island, we just kind of get like a whiff of like we hear stories about that. But yeah, we high first year, second year high school, I started playing guitar, learning guitar, and then a buddy of mine like, "Hey, yeah, let's start a band." So we started playing. We started practicing, and then from punk rock we kind of evolved. Like, of course, it evolves and it continues to. We wanted more like a harder, faster beat, so we discovered like hardcore stuff, Minor Threat, Black Flag, Crumb Suckers. The thing about it is, back home in the Philippines, we have one guy that has like a record collection, which his name is Bob. And I guess his family, like cousins, send him stuff from the states to the Philippines, and then we go to hang out at this place. He would charge us 10 pesos, which is like what, 5 cents, 10 cents, or yeah, 5 cents, to make us a cassette, a mixtape of the bands or the records that he has, and then that's where he's our source of whatever music that we had. Because this was back in like 1990, so there was no internet and stuff like that. So from there, like all of the bands that he had, we listened to, and we saved all our money to get that cassette, and then just listen to it. And then he had like a lot of hardcore punk rock records, so and new wave stuff as well. And then, yeah, from the high school, started playing shows and stuff. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you first got into, like punk rock, and then that progressed into hardcore. So what kind of drawed you into the sound of punk or hardcore music initially?
It was just what do you call that? I don't know, because back that time it was a lot of glam, like glam rock, Guns N' Roses, like kind of radio rock, and even like I remember like Nirvana was kind of starting, but punk rock really appealed to me, and like my buddy, we were just like a few of us that listened to punk rock in our high school, and I don't know, we kind of we listened to like Anarchy in the UK, which we didn't really understand it, but like, oh yeah, this is punk rock. We'd be like rebellious and stuff, and we didn't want, we didn't like the look of like having long hair and the spandex, and like these guys have mohawks and just wear like crazy stuff, and I don't know, it just the image of them kind of appealed to us, like how a punk rock kid or punk rocker would look like. And yeah, that's why it stuck to us, and that's why we just listened to that, uh, whatever we liked.
A lot of themes in punk and hardcore deals with rebellion and promoting social change. So I guess you were pretty young when you first started getting into the music, but were you rebelling against anything, or were you into rebellion or that sort of thing?
No, not really. You're a teenager. You're always like I was 12, 13, 14 years old. Yeah, you're if you're a teenager, you're always rebelling against something. So I mean, I had some stuff that I was rebelling against my parents, or my dad, which is a different story, but it wasn't bad, but it was something that he loved to do, like gambling, and I didn't really like that. So I was just trying to do something else, and I don't know, like, but he was okay, but yeah, I just didn't like what he was he like. I didn't like what he was doing at that time. So I guess, yeah, teenager, hormones, rebellion, yeah, it's a mix.
What did your dad or your parents think about your interest in punk or hardcore music? What were their thoughts?
Uh, it's funny because they thought I was a drug addict, and they thought I was I was a good kid. I went to school. I was like a normal kid. I wasn't really doing anything. I wasn't even drinking. And I don't know, for some reason, their friends look at me and they thought, "Oh yeah, your son is going in a pot session." Like I asked, "What is a pot session?" I don't even know what that means. So like, "Oh, that's like a group of friends smoking weed." Like, no, I don't do that. We go like chill and go to shows and listen to music, and yeah, that's it. But I mean, that changed when my dad and my parents saw me play in high school, graduation. I played guitar on our graduation. I was in a band that played our song for graduation. So like that was like after like 4 years of, and then they said, "Oh yeah, I didn't know you know how to play guitar." Like, yeah, I'm in a band for already like 2 years. But yeah, but parents.
So the first instrument you picked up was the guitar.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so how did you learn to play that? Did you have a teacher? Did your friends teach you?
No, my brother, he bought a nylon classical guitar. So, and then of course, like, oh yeah, hey, I asked my brother if he could teach me. So I kind of just read some fake books and like chord charts and stuff. And then for maybe a couple of sessions, I went to this our neighbor. He's a guitar teacher. I paid like few bucks to teach me guitar, but I didn't really learn anything. But I kind of, I actually I did learn how to tune guitar and stuff like that. But any of that, like I just learned by ear, self-taught.
Awesome. And your very first band experience was with the Underdogs, which
Yeah,
later became known as Shrapnel.
yeah.
So tell me about this band experience, especially since it occurred when you were in an all-boys Catholic school.
Oh yeah. So we I was, I think, second year high school, if I remember it correctly, or third year. I forgot, but it was like my buddy Harold. He was the one who showed me the punk rock, and we started playing in a band. So we started jamming, and we found out that there's a showcase for the students to like whenever in actually a Friday afternoon. So the people, some groups of kids have like dance groups, a singer, stuff like that. So we signed up. Oh yeah, we'll play two songs. So we were at the end. So all it went maybe like a few hours, and then we were the last group to play. So we got our guitars and amps and drum set, and then we just I was super nervous. Like we were like it was our first show. We didn't know how to. We didn't. I don't even think I tuned my guitar right, but it was just we just played the first note, and then I was like shaking, and then we played. It's funny. We played "Anarchy in the UK" by the Sex Pistols, but we changed the lyrics because we were in a Catholic school. The lyrics are "I am an antichrist, I am an anarchist." We changed it to "I am not an antichrist, I am not an anarchist," because like we didn't want to get in trouble, but I guess we still got in trouble because the principal got super mad at us, and then we after we played, like the kids were or the students were, I don't know if they're cheering or just making fun of us because I don't know if we even played correctly, because even the drums, our drummer, we had another student who had to sit in front of the drum so he won't move because there was no carpet, so he was our drummer was playing drums, and then the drums was moving, so he had to sit in front. So yeah, it was something else, and then yeah, we got called to the office, the principal's office, and yeah, we got berated and so we got banned from playing again at the school function. So yep, that was our first taste of anarchy. It was fun.
So shifting now to your immigration experience. So you immigrated here pretty early, and when you first came to the U.S., you arrived in Vegas.
Yeah.
So why'd you choose Vegas specifically, and I guess what motivated you to immigrate to the U.S. in the first place?
Well, I had so when I was 20 years old, I got a letter from the embassy that saying that I have to process my immigrant status because I was approved for a green card to so because my biological parent dad put my he was living here in the States already. I've never really met him before, but he put my name as one of the kids, so he petitioned all like his kids, and he included me. So yeah, and then my when we got the letter, my surrogate parents said, "Oh yeah, you should take this opportunity." And then yeah, I just took it, and I dropped everything. I was in college. I dropped everything and then processed because I had to be here before I turned 21. And then yeah, and then after that, I lived in Vegas because my biological brothers were in Vegas, so that's why I didn't have anywhere to stay. So I just lived with them for a year or so. Yeah, it was pretty weird, but yeah.
So you said you dropped everything before coming here. So what were you studying or planning to study in college before you let all of it down?
I was actually a physical therapy student. I was in my sophomore. No, actually, I was in third year of physical therapy school, and then from there, yeah, I just dropped everything, and then yeah, I went to the States.
When you first came to the States, what kind of culture shock did you experience? And how did you eventually find other people who were, into punk and hardcore music?
Yeah, it was pretty weird. Like I was living in a small city, kind of an island in the Philippines, and then you go somewhere like Vegas, which has like lights and everything. And yeah, it was out of a movie. Like oh, that was my first introduction of America. Was Vegas. So I had to get accustomed to how you talk or how you interact with people. And yeah, it's I had to learn to like, even like if you go to a fast food joint back home at that time, after you eat, you don't really clean up after yourselves back home in the Philippines, because they have employees that clean up. Here, I had to learn how to do that. Like, so like, oh man, I didn't know. So yeah, it's stuff like that, simple stuff like that. So, yeah.
Um, so from Vegas, can you tell me about your history in other cities in the US? And did you join like bands in these in other cities?
Yeah, actually, well, actually, my first band was in Vegas. After like a few years, I was kind of getting, because before, like when I moved to the States, I lived here for maybe 6 months or 7 months. I just worked and then saved up some money to go home and finish college, and then and went back after finishing college. And then when I was like done with every school, and then I'm living here like for good. Like that's when I started looking for bands, and then I found a band here in Vegas. This was my first band. Like I answered an ad on some website about like uh there wasn't even a Craigslist at that time. It was more of a like a forum for local bands or for local artists in regions. So like I looked up Vegas and then look up punk bands looking for guitar player. So I messaged the guy, and then this guy, and then he said, yeah, we're looking for actually a bass player. So like, all right, I'll play bass. But I even told him like, yeah, but I'm kind of short. So like and he said, dude, it doesn't matter. Like, and then all right, cool. Cause I don't know, I was insecure. Like I saw like American dudes like they were super tall, and I was like short, 5'5", and like, man, and yeah, and then that's when I started uh playing a little bit, and then because and then I try to save up for a bass and some gear, because back home in the Philippines, you some like bands don't even have their own guitars. So you would go to a studio and they have like all the guitars there, and you rent and then you play, or you could go to shows and then you just come up to a guy that has like a guitar. Hey, can I borrow your guitar so I can play? Stuff like that. And then here you have to have your own amp, your own guitar or bass or whatever. So I learned that from, and then slowly, and then I moved my wife. I met my wife in Vegas, and then we moved to Florida. And then in Florida, I had a band for about a few years, and then we stayed in Florida in Fort Lauderdale for 5 years, and then we moved to Texas to Houston. And then I didn't even play. Like when we moved here, I didn't play for about a few years, and then like she said, "Oh yeah, I think you need to play in a band again." So yeah, I started looking for a band, and then yeah, from there I started jamming again with other people, and which led me to now, which is playing for Liberty and Justice.
So initially, you were having trouble. In the bio you sent me, you were having trouble finding a band in Vegas.
Yeah.
So you took up the bass after someone gave you advice to switch. So why do you think you had more success with the bass guitar? There's just not enough good bass players out there.
No, not enough. No, I wouldn't say not enough. I mean, not. enough good bass players, but not enough bass players because everyone wanted to play guitar. I was a guitar player when I'm from back home, and then yeah, like I told you, that guy at the guitar store told me like, yeah, just play bass and you'll find a band pretty easy, and you won't have a hard time looking for bands. So yeah, which is pretty true, because yeah, everybody wants to be a guitar player or a singer, and if you want to be in a band, you play drums or bass, and yep, you always get the gig.
You kind of touched upon this earlier when you were telling us about how, you know, in the back in the Philippines, no one or not a lot of people had their own gear, right?
Yeah.
they would borrow it. So how is the band culture different in the Philippines compared to the US? Um, you know, are there any major differences you've noticed?
Um, yeah, actually, pretty actually huge difference, because like this was when I was starting, like from the '90s. I don't know now, because now I think most of the bands now back home have their own gear, kind of that. But this was like '90s, so we even like you if you snap a string, we'd even try to see if we could still use it by winding it back and get the ball joint, and then just tying it back around and just restringing it, just if it's enough length. So it was, I don't know, it was harder to get it was expensive to get electric guitars or band stuff back then. Now it's easier. I mean, there's some, and the culture is like for shows, we back home we would book like 10 or 20 bands, but everyone would just line up and then just, this is my experience when we were doing shows. Like first band would play 3 songs, and then I would just leave, use the same equipment, and then the other three bands would other band would play 3 songs again, and then, and here it's like you got like a 30-minute set plus setup time, and so but other than that, it's all like, it's all punk rock. Kids would do the same pogo, and just have fun, and scream and shout, and yeah, just get rowdy and stuff.
So going back to, you know, your experience in bands, where do you draw inspiration from, you know, for your songwriting, and what are some of your musical influences? I know you touched on this a bit earlier, and then maybe you can touch upon how your influences have changed throughout the years.
Yeah. My first, like I said, I listened when I was younger. I listened to like the Sex Pistols, and then Minor Threat, Descendants, Black Flag. But over the years, I've listened to like ska and um, like new wave stuff, dark wave, electronic music. Try to be open minded, and then I used to listen to a lot of hardcore, metalcore, and but now it's more, I don't know. Like there are times that I want to listen to quieter music, or sometimes if I want to like just kind of, I might, when I'm driving, I listen to like something soft, or something like poppy. And if I'm working, I'm cutting at the shop, I listen to like a lot of hardcore stuff. So, and then you said what, songwriting? How do I
Yeah.
get influence, or
Mhm. I guess your
uh,
creative process kind of.
right? I've noticed that whenever I try to write a riff, I write better riffs when I wake up in the morning, and then like right now, like after the day, and I mean after working and then I'm unwinding, it's harder for me to concentrate. I don't know. I guess that's like if I'm well rested, and then stuff pops up and like, oh, and I could just easily record it on my cell phone. And then yeah, it's I'm more I'm more inclined to make riffs when um I'm not like my mind is still fresh. Yeah.
Can you touch upon some of the challenges you faced in your previous bands or your current band, and kind of how did you overcome them?
Hmm. Challenges. Like what kind of challenge? Like, well, I mean, my personal challenge is trying to keep up with my band members. Like I have this idea in my mind that if I join a band that the the other members are way better than me, I want that because it challenges me and I learn from them. I just grow. So like I've been really lucky to play with a lot of like great musicians, which helped me grow. Like the one that really helped me a lot was I was in a band with Chris LaForge. I don't know if you heard him from 30 Foot Fall. He um he, he was really like a really great musician. He sadly he passed away a few years ago. But as the short time we've been in a band together, I learned so much from him. And he never really like he's in like an amazing guitar player, but he never tries to like I was never afraid or how do you call that I never really I mean I just went for it, and he understood that I was kind of hesitant to like I like in my mind that I was not really a good player, but he just lifted me up, and then yeah, just showed me how to do stuff. And yeah, from there, like yeah, just I learned, and I grew, so which is I was very fortunate. And now like my band Liberty and Justice, like everyone is just such a amazing uh musician that yeah, that's my struggle is to try to keep up with them, which is I like, because it helps me try stuff that I normally won't do, and then yeah, I grow with that.
On the topic of your current band, Liberty and Justice, how did you, when you came to Houston, you started jamming with people. Can you tell us more about how you found out about Liberty and Justice and how you initially, joined them?
Yeah. So I, I'm I'm gonna give you the backstory and then which led me to be in the band. So I make my own hair products. So I make pomade. So I met this guy Ryan Taylor. He's a barber at Cutthroat. At that time, he was in Cutthroat. So he messaged me, hey, just we wanted to carry your products. So I talked to him. I met him, and then from there, he he went to East End, which now is East End Barber, and he took that over, and he made it. He it was at first it was a branch of Cutthroat, and then now he took over, and then he called it East End Barbers, and then so I was supplying their pomade, and we've been friends for a while, and he knew that I played in band, so him and Johnny Rio and Reese, our old guitar player, they had the project Liberty and Justice. So he hit me up like, hey, do you want to play in a super part-time band? Like, all right, cool. I'll play in that. Uh, I've always wanted to play in a band with him. So, and then from there, yeah, that's how I got in from being making pomade. being friends with Barber Ryan and that he's the singer for Liberty. So yeah,
Can you define the sound of Liberty and Justice for us?
it's we have been called the village people of punk rock because it's such a we play a lot a lot of different styles of music. Like everyone, each one of the band members have their own style. Ramsey, our guitar player, have his indie rock kind of punk rock feel, and then Halston, he's into like hardcore, but he's like an amazing like jazz R&B guitar player. And then Ryan has his own style of singing, and then Corey, our drummer, has a rock and roll feel. And I play, I don't know what what you can categorize me, but I guess punk rock. And then yeah, our songs are goes from rock and roll to oi to we put some hardcore songs, and basically we just try to play pop songs that have oi influence and punk rock influence, and right now we're trying to do some other stuff as well. So we're not really like a traditional oi band.
Gotcha. And one of your band songs I listened to recently, it's called Immigrant Rock and Roll, which deals with contemporary issues and topics involving race, mass media, and immigration. Your band's name, Liberty and Justice, obviously alludes to this, but what motivates you guys to sing about these things? Is there some interesting backstory?
Well, Ryan wrote that song, and then I wrote my verse, and then he kept. Actually, I thought that was really it was pretty cool. Like he titled it "Immigrant Rock and Roll" because like our band is always all inclusive. We don't really, and we try to sing about stuff that are relevant but not really hateful, but will open your eyes. And yeah, that's the song that I think it's perfect song for everyone. And then my verse is about being from the Philippines and then coming here and then trying to be a good citizen, and then yeah.
So, based on that song, um, what is the kind of response you guys hope to invoke, or kind of the message that you would like to put forth? Is it, about inclusivity and, diversity, that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's I mean it's our message is that like everyone, we're all immigrants in this country, and we should just yeah not hate anyone that's not it's different. And then this is our it's our music, it's rock and roll, it's for everyone. And
Your band's most recent album was released in June of 2021. So it's not been too long since the release, but are you guys always working on writing new music?
yeah, actually we last night we practiced, and we're getting ready to record 8 songs for an EP, but I don't know if all the songs are gonna be in the EP, but because the label wanted us to make another song before we head out to Europe. So yep, and the songs are coming out pretty good. So it's different from Pressure, our second one, the one that we got released last year, but or actually yeah, it was. I think it was last year. Everything's a blur from from last. Yeah, but yeah, we were gonna record those new songs, and then yeah, we were gonna hopefully it will be out this year. Yeah.
You mentioned that the new music you're writing for the EP is it's going to be different from Pressure. So what's different about it? If you can tell me anything about your new music at this point.
Well, we're gonna do. It's gonna be a little bit more darker because it's like we're trying to like from our first album, which is For All, which is more like a happy kind of chanting music, and then Pressure is more of like a little bit more darker than that, and then the third one, I guess it's more like mature, and we're gonna add a different kind of not just punk or hardcore. So it's a different genre, which I don't want to tell you.
No worries. Um, you know, as you're aware, punk and hardcore music can be associated with, racism and hate. Obviously, not the majority of punk and hardcore is not. But with that being said, have you ever faced any hardships, for example, racism due to your race in the scene?
Personally, at the shows, I've never really encountered anything. I've encountered racism at work, not the barbershop, but I used to work at a hospital. That's where I encountered uh, racism, especially when uh, around 2016 and then from there, I've experienced more and more racism. Then because that's when you know when that the but compared to like from when I started when I lived here from 97, I've never really had an experience, or I was just gullible, or I don't know, I just didn't really had that. I was lucky that I wasn't really exposed to that much racism, but it's just unfortunate that other people really experience that in a daily, which is it shouldn't be it shouldn't happen actually now, especially now.
Yes, it is unfortunate, but I'm glad to hear that your experience in the scene has mostly been positive.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
everyone takes care of it, especially like if you go to shows that are, it's just I don't know, like if you're a real punk rocker or a hardcore kid, yeah, race hate and any like race doesn't really count, and hate is not it's not um it's not cool. Like I mean, yeah.
So you've come a long way from your arrival here in 97 to now. In fact, you mentioned in the bio that you sent to me that you've played with a lot of your heroes in the scene. So tell me what that's like.
Yeah, actually, I've played with Agnostic Front. Um, that was pretty cool. Like at first I was like super nervous to like be in face to face with the band the band that I really love, and then I realized that hey, if they've heard your band, and then I've had one of the my heroes tell me that, oh yeah, you're a badass bass player, man. Like, and that means so much. So I mean, it's just the same. Like, kind of, I I try not to be a fanboy in front of them because I try to keep it cool, but inside me, I want to just kind of hug them and scream and it's just it's an awesome feeling to play with open for your heroes.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Um, and I want to go back to your immigrant experience now.
Uh,
As an Asian immigrant, what would you say has been the hardest part of your experience?
um, being away from your family and trying to, yeah, just being away with your loved ones is a really tough one for me. Like, cause like my adoptive parents were back home. Then my and my brothers were back home, and so and my friends were all back home. Even though like I made friends here, it's just different too. Like if you grew up with them and then you rarely see him now, and then this is your life now. You live here. You have to. It's a different way. Like how you deal with people back home is totally different than how you deal with people like, right here. I mean, did you grow up here or you were born here or you
Yeah, I was born here. I was born
okay.
here. Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's how we sometimes it's some people would think that it's weird for some stuff like being how yeah this I lost my train of thought but
No
yeah
worries.
and then one thing too is the language like it's not my it's not my mother tongue it's I have to think like for to speak in English I have to think of what I have to say first it doesn't really come out naturally so yeah I stutter and sometimes like I have to take a while to think of what I have to say if it makes sense or not. So yeah, language barrier and stuff. So,
You mentioned how family was a big part of that challenge of immigration. So are
uh,
you still in close contact with your adoptive parents or your friends uh, in the Philippines?
yeah, my well, my adoptive parents already passed, but my brother is still back home, so we still keep in touch, and my friends through social media we still talk, which is pretty helpful.
I'd like to shift now to some of your perspectives on current issues or topics. The first question I have is, as you're most likely aware, there's been a rise in anti-Asian sentiment recently,
Yeah.
especially due to the pandemic. So since punk and hardcore has always been politically charged or involved with trying to promote social change, what do you think punk musicians or hardcore musicians can do to combat this sentiment or fight back?
Well, if like through our songs we should just educate people, not because I mean sometimes the hate comes from not understanding and misinformation, especially Asians were blamed for the pandemic, which is it sucks. It's and now all these hate is actually like even directed to older Asian folks. Like I've seen a lot of news that they always target um older people, which is like it 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 really breaks my heart every time I read about it. So our songs are about trying to watch out for each other and educate that this is not uh, what's going on with the world is not caused by one particular people or one particular person or it's not caused by anyone. It's just it's an event that we have no control of, but we have to live with it, and we have to watch out for each other and not blame a certain sect that it was there was a reason for it. Yeah.
When you think about yourself in the scene, do you identify yourself as an Asian musician, an Asian American musician, an American musician, or do you think this classification even matters at all?
Um. Actually, I'm guilty of saying that I'm an Asian musician. I'm still not an American because I still have my green card. It's just that I'm not I didn't go through the citizenship yet. So I said I'm an Asian musician. I'm an Asian punk kid or punk rocker. I don't. Yeah.
Um, can you tell me about your perspective on Houston, Houston's punk and hardcore scene, and how it compares to other regional punk and hardcore scenes you've been a part of?
Yeah. For I've lived in Vegas and they have a pretty good punk scene. And in Fort Lauderdale, my experience is not so good. I wasn't really involved too much, but in Houston, I this is where I think I flourished here because all the people are very welcoming, and I feel that the scene is more united, as cliche as it may sound. Like everyone knows each other, and there's like right now there's a ton of new bands that are playing, and then which is like amazing. So it's growing. It's still growing, and yeah, it's been a good few years for the Houston punk scene.
Do you like, would you say that you like the US, punk and hardcore scene better than the scene in the Philippines?
Um, I like them both the same way because it's different. You can't really like one. I can't really choose because the Philippine punk scene is my like stomping ground. That's where I I I uh I learned and became a punk kid, and that's my roots. Not you can't love anything else or other than what do you call it? You can't love something else before your roots. You know what I'm saying? Like it has to be like the same. And then from the U.S. punk scene, like here at Houston, this is where I grew as well. Like I learned a lot. So I mean, it's the same for me. Like I can't choose which one I like better.
What is your perspective on the future of Asians and Asian Americans in the scene? Being in the US scene for quite some time, have you noticed um, a shift in Asian participation, perhaps more or less?
Yeah, I've seen more and more Asian bands. Actually, in San Francisco, a buddy of mine, they have a Klassen Records, which is mainly a lot. Most of our Asians, bands of Asian descent, and then there's they really try to spread the word, and then through social media, there's other like groups that are trying to um educate and show that Asians are in punk bands too, or they're Asian musicians, not just punk, other genres. So it's we're getting more visible and getting more recognized.
Speaking of other genres, have you ever been a part of a band that wasn't punk or hardcore?
Well, it's still kind of punk adjacent, like ska. I was in a ska band or ska punk. I guess it's the same. It's still ska core. Um, Let me see what else. Uh, no, I've always played in a kind of punk hardcore adjacent band.
You mentioned earlier about your um, business called Pomps Not Dead,
Yeah.
um, which seems to have some sort of a cult following among people who like punk and hardcore music. So tell me about your business and like why you started it and your clientele.
Well, yeah, it's actually it just started because I I wanted to make hair products, and then the themes are the bands that I like. So the names of the products are based off the bands that like on my favorite bands like Sick of It All, like that band Sick of It All. I have a product called Slick of It All, or Pompage, uh like from the band Descendants, because they like coffee. That's why it's the pomade is coffee scented, and then they like to use words and then add age to the end. So that's why Pompage. And then I just made the products to actually hang out with the bands I like. So I just show them like, hey, I love your band, and I make this product, and I've all the bands that I've messaged or did some influence for the products. They always a positive um result or positive remark from them. Like, and then I tend to like meet them. If they're in town, like, hey, and then I get invited. Oh yeah.
So how long have you had the business?
um, this year's gonna be my 10th year now, because I started 2012. So 22 is my 10th year.
Oh, wow. So you've been um, making the product for a while now.
Yeah, yeah, 10
Um,
years. It's just small. I mean, it's more of like a hobby, but yeah, I just enjoy making it.
mhm. Um, do you have any advice for aspiring punk musicians, whether they play guitar, bass, drums, and especially for those who are perhaps Asian or Asian American?
I would just, if they're a young kid or an older cat, if they're just starting to play guitar, I always tell them, yeah, there's always practice, and there's no it's never too late. If they're older and then, oh, I'm too old to play guitar, like, no, it's never too late to learn how to play an instrument. Because I mean, I started like, now I'm 45. Even though I've been playing since I was in high school, I stopped and I never really focused on playing like right now, like with Liberty, until like, oh, I turned like 40. So yeah, it's never too late, and then just stick with it. Like, if you really enjoy it, yeah, just have fun, and don't think about uh just don't think about the like what other people would say. Like, yeah, because we have a lot to offer. Like, Asians have a lot to offer.
Absolutely. Um, so to close off this interview, I'd just like to ask, is there anything else you would like to share that maybe I didn't cover in the interview?
Like,
Just anything you'd like to share, or if there's anything on your mind, anything like that, really.
Put me on the spot.
If not, no worries. I mean, no pressure.
I think that I think we covered everything. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, we covered a lot of ground. Um, yeah, it was great talking with you today,
Yeah.
about, your musical experiences spanning all the way from, when you were in the Philippines to now in Houston. So it's long and journey with lots of cool experiences. So thanks so much for sharing that with us today.
And thanks for considering me for this interview, and I really appreciate it.